Okay, awesome. Krystal, I'm so excited to interview you. This is the first time I've done this for my students in the Balanced Energy University course. So we're excited to get a different perspective from a medium. That's something we haven't done before. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? A lot of my students probably don't know who you are.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's my honor, honestly, to be here with you. I think it's an amazing opportunity. So thank you. I hope that it will help your students. A little bit about me. Gal, I've kind of been in the spiritual realm all my life, but I didn't know I had all the gifts until I got much later in life.
Mhm.
I know that I was always, sensitive to it, a deja vu, precognition. You just have dreams that came true, and I just thought everyone had that.
Yeah.
As I got older and studied it, I mean, I was just a sponge. I couldn't get enough of it. I got into Reiki in about 2015. I became a Reiki master in 2015, and I think that just opened the floodgates for me. Years later, then I got into mediumship, and now it just doesn't stop. Now there's more learning and more growing, and
Yeah,
yeah,
you kind of go down that rabbit hole, don't you?
yeah, you
That's
don't
what I did
stop.
with energy work.
Yep.
I just started in and just kept going and kept going. And the more I went in, the more excited I got and the more like just ahas. And I was like, oh, this makes so much more sense. I wish I would have known about this 20 years ago. Like I get
Right.
it now. And yeah, it's pretty cool. So can you kind of explain a little bit about mediumship and how it differs from like other forms of like psychic development or psychic abilities?
Sure. And every session I do, I kind of say the same thing in the beginning so everyone has clarity with my clients. So, mediumship is someone who's tapping into spirits and loved ones that have crossed over. They're no longer in their earthly body. I pick up spirits, even including our animals, our pets. That's the mediumship part, talking to the deceased. The
Mhm.
psychic part is what I call actually current events, something that just happened in your life, something that's happening now, something that's about to happen. And when I do readings, I do both. A psychic medium is picking up current events, but also talking to the deceased loved ones. Um, and I like to clarify that because there's a lot of people that just think they're psychic, and they probably are, but they're not all mediums. They're not all talking to your deceased mother or father or a child. There's a big difference in that.
And do you find too that there are people with one or the other? Like there's people that just do spirit, but they don't pick up on like current events and
I
stuff?
do find that it's usually my clientele that tells me, because that's always my question is, have you been
Yeah.
to a medium before? And they're like, well, I went to an energy worker and she told me that my mom's around or angels are around or what, they're picking up kind of a current event, a psychic read on them,
Yeah.
not necessarily have messages from the departed, but they're picking up some sort of energy that they're giving my clients.
Okay.
And it's coming back to me to tell me that.
And what do you feel like are some common misconceptions about mediumship?
Oh God, most of the time, first of all, Hollywood's made it scary.
Yeah.
Second of all, it's blown up and there's a lot of scams out there and a lot of people that will say one thing and do another.
Mhm.
I came to the table of mediumship knowing no matter what, absolutely, I would use ethics and morals in my readings. And I've done that since day one. But I find that people don't do that. They'll say one thing and it's hurtful to a client. They're like, oh, well, they said that, I was going to have this problem or I have a health problem or my mom's going to die. Now that's sitting with a person that they got to go the rest of their life thinking that. And most of that's not true.
Right.
That
Yeah.
they think it's scary or it's dark entities or Hollywood has just made it crazy. It really has. The Hollywood has also made mediums glamorous. If you look at like Teresa Caputo and Tyler Henry and all the people that are making money off this, that have a film crew behind them, that you're only seeing the glimpses of the best part of the reading.
Right.
When I sit with a client, it's either 30 minutes or 60 minutes. And there's times where it's like, it's quiet because I'm tapping into spirit. It's not just flowing 100% of the time. And the other misconception is people think only gifted people can do this, and that's not true. I learned this years ago. I'm very logical minded, very linear thinking, and I picked it up from A to Z, and now it has become a practice. Just like anything that you do, once you do it a while, it's
Yeah.
no longer a habit. You know it. So
Well, I can definitely relate to the quiet times when you're connecting to higher power, spirit, whatever that is. when I do Akashic readings, I find that too. Like there are times that it's super profound and it's coming through so fast, like I just can't get the information out quick enough. But there are other times where I'm sitting, I'm waiting for the inspiration and I'm just allowing it to come through. So I think that's a really good thing to bring up, because sometimes when you're doing energy healing, in this case with my students, or if they decide to get into Akashic readings, or if they decide to take it further and go into mediumship or something like that, it's totally normal and it's totally okay. It's not like you're getting constant downloads all the time and there's never going to be these little quiet moments. The quiet moments are normal. So
Yeah.
I think
And we're human. We're in human form absorbing that energy. If we was on the other side or in the universe, it would be constant for us, but we're still
yeah,
human and we're picking that up. So yeah, that's a real big misconception is TV has made it, oh, you just turn a switch on and you have it. And it's so not true. It's those quiet moments, the reflections, the meditations, the calm of how do I feel, and to not get wrapped up in, okay, people are looking at me, they're waiting for my next word, they're waiting on the very next thing that I say, they're hanging on to that. I get out of that fear, I guess it would be,
yeah.
of yourself,
Hmm.
of self.
Yeah, I find that I had to do that too. And it took me a few sessions to be okay with that, because I felt the same way. And a lot of my sessions were done via Zoom. So it's even quieter because it's not like they're in the room with you. It's, I feel like sometimes, or the first few sessions that I did, like the pressure's on. I'm like, why isn't this coming? Why isn't this coming? And for me, I felt like when I quieted that part of me, that anxious part to come up with something quickly and just sat with it and just allowed it to be okay, the more I relaxed, the more the images would come through for me. Do you find that too? That if you relax
Absolutely.
into it, then it's way
Absolutely.
easier?
In the beginning, you stumble a lot because your ego is involved. You have to step over that ego and be brave enough to just take a deep breath in, kind of let it come back out and go, I know I'm okay and it's going to flow, and
Yeah.
trust that process. That's the biggest thing. And most people get out of it in the beginning. They get out of energy work or they get out of mediumship or probably the Akashic stuff. In the beginning, it's like, oh, I can't do this. It's too much.
Yeah.
They
And I
doubt
almost
themselves.
did. Yeah. I did probably, I don't know, 3 or 4. And it was, I mean, it was janky. Like I felt like I did a decent job and I didn't charge for those because I knew I was learning. But I was like, gosh, is this something I really want to do? And I think I just was like, no, I'm going to keep going because something's here. I'm being so called to this. And it was something I really wanted to develop in myself. And by the time I got to like the 7th one, I felt like, not that I was a pro, but I felt so much more confident in the way the messages were coming through for me, because every individual is going to be different. And I started understanding how to kind of like dissect the messages that were coming through. And yeah, it was a crazy ride for sure. It was very, very fun. So as you know, like most of my students are going to be going into energy healing. How important would you say is intuition and developing their intuition for that energy healing work?
Oh my gosh, it's absolutely everything. It's 100% of it, everything. And trusting.
Yeah.
But the second thing is to make it fun, because the minute it's not fun, the
Yeah.
minute your ego steps in and shuts you down, and oh, I'm getting judged and I'm judging myself. And, if you make it fun and laugh about it and okay, that didn't work. Okay, we'll try again, and continue to do that, you're building that vibration in your body itself. Okay. And so you're already in a higher state of vibration that now you're going to get the downloads because you made it fun, or you cracked a joke, or you made something funny,
Yeah.
you
Not so
bring it back to
serious.
yourself. Not so
Yeah.
serious.
So what practices then do you do and that you would recommend for people to start out with developing their intuition?
If they're brand spanking new and nothing's happening, usually this happens when we're kids, like you're sitting with your best friend on a street corner and you're like, okay, predict the next color of car, right? It's going to be a blue truck. It's going to be a red, this, it's going to, and just kind of building that muscle. That's kind of fun. But you're doing it with a buddy, right? Try to predict things, try to get a parking spot close to wherever you want to go, at the front door sort of thing. And just like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Kind of just let it out there to spirit. Okay, I am expecting a feather today, or I'm expecting a coin. Again, we want to make it fun. in the beginning, I got into something called Zener cards. It's a Zener. And basically, that I remember right, like I might have a card that has a blue square or a purple diamond or different shapes that are colors that I'm holding. And someone, a friend of mine might be practicing, okay, what do I have now? And then you give the cards to them and you're involved in that. And it's just building that muscle. All of it's just a muscle. It's like riding a bike. The more you practice, the more you're going to make it fun. And meditation. I really think meditation is important. And I don't mean long sitting. I mean small increments of time over time.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I like what you said about the cards, because that's one thing I teach in my program, is that there's so many creative ways to build intuition without like spending a ton of money and going to see like some specialist or like whatever. There's little things that you can do.
Yeah.
And one of the things is using a deck of cards and laying the deck of cards out in front of you and trying to guess again, like what's coming up. And you can even just use like take 2s through 10s, get rid of the rest, and just start small and start kind of like building up that confidence that like you can actually do it by using less cards. And then you can start adding some of the cards back in. That's one of the things that I teach. And then also visualizing, because a lot of what we do in the energy space is, and the way I teach it is, there's a lot of visualization. And I teach them to like visualize a red ball going from the left side to the right side, and then putting a number on the red ball, and like a lot of that stuff. Do you incorporate a lot of the visualization with them?
I love that idea. I don't necessarily, when I'm doing my work's a little bit different when I'm doing the work, but in the beginning, what I told myself and what I learned was use your imagination. So what you're saying, you're incorporating that in it. My imagination shows me this and shows me that, and play with it. I mean, the longer that you're playing with it, you're building that muscle. And so again, if you're making it fun, but you're using your imagination, some people talk themselves out of it. It's like, oh no, that's just my imagination. That wasn't me.
Yeah.
Spirit will pop into your brain something you wasn't thinking of. That's when you know it's spirit.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of, like you said, a red ball with a number 4 on it or something, for example. And all of a sudden here comes this blue card and you're like, what does that mean? Okay, I wasn't thinking about that. There's something else. So
Yeah.
being open to the downloads, I guess.
Yeah. So you had mentioned meditation. So what kind of style of meditation do you like? And like, share with us like your process.
Every morning after breakfast sort of thing, sometimes before breakfast, just really sitting alone 10 or 15 minutes. If I'm really in the zone, it could go 20 or 25. I sit in a very low ambiance lit room, just quiet. I just love quiet, and just kind of get into myself. I don't necessarily use guided meditations. I have in the past, but I've practiced so long. I kind of go into a self-hypnosis, the one where you might have heard, where you kind of lightly roll your eyeballs up to the back of your eyelids and kind of let them flutter. And within a few minutes, I can tell that I'm in there, because the mind chatter has shut off. Right? No longer talking to my mind, and I got to get the laundry and check the dog, and that goes away. Now it's silent. And people expect some giant, enormous thing to happen in meditation. Truly what it is taking you to a very silent and calm place, and you're sitting there, and that's the Zen. And then when you're done, you're getting up and going, okay, I feel refreshed. Maybe I didn't get a download, but you're practicing that over and over. So the day that you do get a download that's important, you were ready.
Right.
It's kind of talking yourself off the bridge of, I have to get something. You don't.
Yeah. And I also think too, that with as chaotic as the world is right now, like we're constantly being bombarded. We're always on our phones. We're always on our computer. We're always hustling here, hustling there, like just taking those quiet moments to just be okay with just the quietness of everything is so important. I feel like we've lost so much of that when we used to like be out farming and, picking berries and whatever it is, like that calm quietness. I think we've gone so far away from that it's important to get back. And for me, it really helps me to connect to the earth, because a lot of the times when I do meditation, I include the earth, and I include like grounding and stuff like that, because I'm a very earthly type girl, and it just really helps me like get out of all the electronics and everything and just really connect again with the earth and my roots and stuff. So that really helps me a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say there's some people that just do a walking meditation and just
Yeah.
walking through the forest or walking that. And as long as you're in that calm state of mind that the brain waves can calm down, that's meditation. Some people think it has to be a big deal or it has to be long. It doesn't. Most people won't stick with it if it's a long deal. They've got things to do.
Yeah, for
Right?
sure. So do you feel like that there are particular signs that would indicate a person who would be a really good fit for mediumship or energy work or alternative healing? Like, is there a particular person that's like, oh, you like would be great at this? This is kind of your calling.
Yeah. Well, most of the time there's an inkling in childhood.
Mhm.
But the number one thing is truly they have a desire, an intense interest. I can't help it. I just feel my grandma around, or I have my aunt, or I just know someone's here. You know, something might have happened in childhood. That didn't necessarily happen to me, but I had an intense interest from childhood. The
Mhm.
second thing, they might have had a family member with the ability, or it ran in the family. Maybe mom had, done some magic with energy work, or she was a healer and grandma did it and it ran in the family. A person with psychic abilities usually shows something or has told their friends, or they
Right.
dabble in crystals, or they're interested in it, right? If we're talking inclination towards mediumship, usually those people have seen spirits growing up or just felt them around or can describe it to someone else. There's also another option. Some people have had an NDE where they've had a near-death experience that took them to the other side and brought them back, and now they're closer connected to the spirit world than they might have been before.
Yeah, for sure.
But most of the time, they're just hungry for knowledge. There's a reason I'm called to this. I don't know why, but I have to figure it out,
Yeah.
right?
So one of the questions that I get asked a lot is from students or from my clients who are like, I feel like I had this at one time in my life and I felt like it was strong intuition and like I didn't have to force it or anything like that. And now it's kind of like it's not there as much and they don't know if it's because they're turned off in some way or they've moved beyond it, or so what are some ways that they could get that back if they feel like they've kind of lost something?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it happens to almost every single person.
Oh, okay.
When I teach my intuition class, I'll tell you what I teach is, about age 5 to 7, somewhere right in there, 4, 5, 7, kind of about school age. We've had our intuition all of our life. We're a little kid. We know what we want. We know what we don't want. We know we want that toy and we don't want broccoli. Like that's your intuition, right? I know I want to sit on dad's lap and not Aunt Henry's or whatever,
Yeah.
Uncle Henry's. But we know what we want. About 5 or 6, we're going to school, and it's not that school does it, but what we are getting is programs. So suddenly we're at school and your teacher's saying, "Oh, little Johnny, you're so good at math." And you know that you're little Johnny and you're like, "I'm not really good at math. Look how good you did on this picture." And it doesn't look very good. Like there's this inner knowing of that doesn't jive with me, but they're telling me it does. So to make people happy, I need it to jive with them. Okay, now I take the picture home and mom says it's great, or math is great. Pretty soon I start doing what other people want. And so almost all of our school years are brought into that awareness. We shut everything else out, we make everyone else happy, and we do what we're told to settle in, right?
Yeah.
I find that right around age 20, 21, I don't know why that's age, that's when we get this awareness of, oh, maybe I've been in a relationship and that broke up and I can't trust myself and that wasn't good. And now I don't want to do that again. Right now we're starting to question, where's my intuition and why didn't that work for me?
Mhm.
Years go on again, and usually about 32, 33, we're questioning it again. Some people call this like the pre-midlife crisis of, okay, where's my intuition and why isn't this working for you? Now maybe I've been married and divorced and got a job I hate, and I'm making choices I'm not happy with, right? I tell people that you need to get back in your body. Your intuition truly sits in your body. It doesn't sit in your head. So when you're trying to make logical choices with your mind, it's not going to come that way. How does my body feel? Not just my gut. This isn't just my gut. How does my body feel?
Yep. I
Yeah.
100% agree with that. 100%. I
Yeah.
just did a mindset training, and one of the things in the mindset training that I taught was that, yes, this is all about mindset, and I'm showing them the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and I go into the critical filter and what all of that looks like. But then I'm like, now I understand that this is a mindset training, but I would be doing you a huge disservice if I didn't also explain to you that everything that's held within the subconscious mind has an emotional connection held within the body. And that's a key component of the two. It takes both. You can't just go off one or the other. You have to work in harmony with each other. And yeah, so I 100% agree with you there. So I do want to ask you if you have like a personal favorite experience that you're just like, oh yeah, that was amazing. And you're just like, that was, because I have that with my Akashic readings. I have about 5 that are just, they just blow my mind, and energy sessions that blow my mind. So what is your top memory of a session that you did for somebody that you're just like, it just keeps coming back and you just get all goosebumpy when you think
Yeah,
about it?
I love that because when you're on your down day and you're like nothing's working and should I quit doing this?
Yeah,
You think about the ones that are so good and you're like, oh yeah, I am going to keep doing this, right?
yeah.
There's 2 that stands out, but I'll just give you one. There was a young gal that came to me. She was no more than 32. She had lost her 13-year-old daughter to suicide. It
Oh,
was a sad situation, and you know, of course, she was devastated. But the daughter was giving me so much information that she's saying, tell my mom I'm right here. She showed me a bear and it looked like someone had sewed it, but you know, in my mind, it has to go through my filter. And I said, I'm going to explain what I'm seeing. It was a bear and it had stars all over it with star buttons, black eyes, short ears. I mean, I was describing like a stuffed bear.
yeah.
And she said, I don't know about that, but I can tell you that I gave some clothes of my daughter's to this lady to sew me a bear
Mm,
that you know, that's kind of like a comfort bear, a grief bear after your person has passed. This bear's right here. She said, I don't remember what I gave her. She sent me a picture later and it was exactly like I described. It was, she used her pajama bottoms and they had stars all over them and had yellow star buttons
wow.
going up. I mean, just everything that I didn't even see a picture till a week later. So
Yeah.
sometimes you don't know, but the daughter's, I just got chills again. The
Yeah.
daughter's just right there saying, I'm right here. I'm right here. Tell my mom I'm right here. She knew all of that. Right.
That's
And
crazy.
sometimes you give stuff to a client and they can't place it. Like they're just like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And you just have to wait for it to happen. Truly, it's not really a prediction, but it's in the energy field. And you're like, well, I see it. This is important. And I'm sure you
Yeah.
get that with your records.
Yeah, so I can actually, I've got one very similar. So the first time this has ever happened during an Akashic reading, because I see things, like I see things just like a movie screen, and it's very, very vivid. Like I am right there and I feel things within my body. And it's the craziest thing. Like I can't even explain how bananas it seems. But there was this one particular one that I was doing, and nothing like this had happened to me before. And I felt like a cold pencil or an icicle or something that was writing on my crown chakra. I could feel the coldness of the writing. And
Wow.
I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do with this? Like I didn't even know where to go with this. And I was just like, okay, it's all good. And I just relayed that to my client. I says, you know what, give me a second. I've never experienced this before, but your angel, your guide, whoever it is, they're writing something on my head with a cold pen. And I don't know what they're writing. I have to grab a pen and like write what they're writing. And she was like, okay. And I wrote it. And it seemed so obvious. The word was trust. And I was like, okay, I don't know what this is. I don't know what it means, but the word is trust. You just need to trust it's all going to be okay. Everything is in perfect timing, went into all that with her. And she was like, okay. And it's very generic, right? It was like
Yeah.
trust, like, come on, anybody could have come up with that. And I was just left her with it with a bunch of other stuff. And it was 3 days later that she had sent me an email with a picture, and she was cleaning out her bathroom drawer. And at the very, very back of the bathroom drawer from like 3 years ago, on a little sticky note, she had wrote the word trust. And she goes, it was something that I got from my angels and guides in a period of my life where I was really not sure what I was going to do, what decisions I was making, anything. And she's like, it just intuitively came to me that I needed to write the word trust down. And she goes, I put it in my drawer. And when I shut the drawer, it must have like went all the way to the back or whatever. And she was like, can you please relay to them that I got the message?
Oh, wow. I
And
love
I was
that.
like, that's crazy.
Yeah. You
So
just can't make this stuff up. I mean, the stuff that
no,
comes through, it just isn't your own channel. It's a
right.
different channel that you're picking up.
A
And
hundred
it's
percent.
truly for the client that you're sharing with it in my
Yeah.
sessions. That's what I'm telling you. I tell them, I said, I don't remember anything because it's not for me. It's not my
Right.
grandmother. It's not my mother. It's for you.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So I
Totally.
love that for you.
So on the flip side of that, we all hear these wonderful stories, these life-changing sessions that we do. But on the flip side of that, I want to be real with my students and let them know that not every session goes that way. So can you share a time where a session was like super rough and janky and you just left it just feeling, deflated and like, oh, is this work really for me? And then I've got one I can share right after showing the
Yeah.
correlation that everything is not all super easy every time.
Yeah. Well, we talked about, almost giving up.
Yeah.
Early on, I had really good readings, and then there was a couple that were just crap, and I was like, okay, this is dumb. I'm not even, and I had to give it a break, and that was horrible. But recently, I've been in this now going on 6 years, and just recently, it was probably 6 months ago, I had a gal come to me. The minute that I saw her, she started saying, I've been to all the Hollywood big names, and I've been to the one in Salt Lake, and I've been to this, and I've been to a lot of mediums. So she came in kind of, look at me, I'm just waiting for what you got for me, right? But I always try to bring it back to myself. It was like, okay, maybe she's got some really good messages. This is cool.
Yeah.
Well, I sat with her and I knew what I was getting. I mean, I was on a flow. I knew that I was channeling something. She had spirit on the other side. She had a dog. There was a whole bunch of things, and she kept saying no, no, no. And it's one of those where your clients are, their arms are crossed and no, whatever, no, this ain't working. She kind of, I think it was her personality, but I just let it go and I let it flow. After about 15 minutes, I said, you know what, this just isn't working out. I do not like no's in my session. I want you to be happy. So let me just refund your money. And I don't even think she had paid me yet. And I said, maybe I can recommend someone else for you, but this is a waste of your time and mine. And I don't want that for you. I don't want to force it, and I do not make it up. And if it
Right.
isn't flowing, it needs to flow for you.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Almost the same situation. So I knew prior to this session that, I don't know, I just had this intuitiveness that it was very late. It was a late session because of the time zones differences, because I do international readings all the time. And it was like something like 8 or 9 o'clock my time, which is not in my best time either, because that's not when I'm at my best. But also for her, it was like 12 o'clock at night when she was just
Oh,
getting off work or something. She worked a late shift. And so same thing, as soon as we got on the call, she's like, I'm really tired. Somebody just recommended you. I figured, why not? I'll give it a shot. It sounded interesting. I don't even really know why I'm here. Like, just it started off like, and I was like, okay. And I did the same thing as you. I was just like, okay, let's just roll with this. And I felt like she wasn't in a good energy place, if that makes sense, for me to continue with the reading. But this was new for me. I had never had a bad reading. I mean, aside from the ones that I started with that I was doing for free, I didn't really recall a bad reading. And most of my clients, like I even had one client that referred 5 other clients, and all 5 of them were super happy. So my referral rate was 99%.
yeah.
And I started working with this particular client and did my intro and went into my space like I do and asked permission and all that. And stuff was coming up, but it was coming up slow. And she was agreeing with some of it, not agreeing with other parts of it. And I kept getting this same kind of a vision. And she just was like, no, I'm not going down that path. I'm not doing that. I'm not writing that book. I'm not whatever. And I was like, well, all I can share with you is what's coming through. And I did the same thing. At the end of the session, I said, look, this didn't go the way I was hoping. And I felt like you weren't in the right energy space. Maybe I wasn't in the right energy space. Our angels and guides just weren't there with us today. And I'm going to refund your money because I do want you to be happy. And just called it a day. But I really feel, looking back now, that it was the time and the fact that she was getting off work and she was already stressed and, hurrying home, and it was late and all that. So now when I do those, I try to set the expectation that you need to be in a really good place mentally, like take an hour before to just kind of calm yourself, do some house cleaning if that's your thing, go for a walk. But when we come together, I need you in a really good headspace to be able to absorb the information that I'm giving you and to be open so that am able to get what I need to help you and give you the correct information. So I really wanted to show my clients that there's 2 sides of that. There's duplicity in everything, right?
Yeah.
It's not
And,
all,
and I agree with that so much. And some of my clients are in deep states of grief, right? And so they don't even know what they're doing half the time. And this just happened last week and I need answers right now. And there's this rush somehow to get it right now. And it's not
yeah,
how energy works.
right,
Intuition is moment to moment to moment. And I try to enforce that on my clients is sometimes the answer you're looking for isn't even here yet. You can't
yeah,
rush it. I wanted to add to that. She was tired. She just got off work and she kind of wasn't in the mood, right?
right,
I remind myself that it could be me. I'm just not a good channel today, or I'm PMSing, or I'm just, got in fight with my husband and now I've got to do a reading. That's
yeah,
not good either, right? So we know that we have to be clear and precise. And clients, I've had clients that are driving and I'm like, we can't do this driving. You need to pull over, go to the park. If you really want this, you're going to make it happen. So I'm glad that set that intention. You need to chill out for about an hour
yeah.
before. It's a big deal.
It is. It really is. And it helps us do a better job and get them better results. If both parties participate in the way that it's intended.
Oh yeah, it flows so much easier.
So how do you handle, so I've got some questions around ethics and responsibility, and I'm just gonna kind of roll this into one and let you kind of flow however it works for you. But I want to talk a little bit about ethical responsibilities that come with mediumship, especially sensitive information, kind of maintaining boundaries, because I don't know if you have spirits and guides coming to you at night and like inappropriate times, or, and then also if you've had any, I don't like to call them negative experiences. I prefer the word heavy. If you've had heavy experiences with channeling certain beings coming through.
Okay. Let's just take that from the top. So with ethics and responsibility, I had a wonderful mentor and a great teacher that the first thing out of her mouth was, the thing that you're doing here is do no harm. You
Yeah.
will not cause harm to anyone else or yourself, right? So, and that means I'm not going to be a channel, however that might be, Akashic or medium or spirit. It's someone doing energy work, just, hey, I need to tell you this. Of saying, oh, you know what, there's someone around you that there's maybe sexual trauma or something happened to you at the age 5 or blah, 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 blah. You're saying all these negative things that's impacting a person that might not be true, probably not true.
Right.
And now they've got to live with that for the rest of their life, right? So if it's hurtful, it's not going to benefit anyone. If it's hateful, don't say it. The other thing is, because I'm dealing with grief, I know how they've passed. They're showing me maybe it was a car wreck and they went through the windshield, right? I don't want to see the blood and gore, and I set that pack up with my guides in the beginning. I'll bring through loved ones, and I'll bring through what I need to. But the person in front of me already knows their loved one went through the windshield. The
Yeah.
way I say it, I can be gentle and calm and connected with that, and just say, they're showing me a terrible accident. There was a vehicle involved. Da da da. They know the gore and the blood. I don't need to bring that up. So that's another thing. I just kind of step back. The family knows, or if it's, let's say, an overdose, the family knows that. And I can say whatever the person's saying. So I don't put my own words in their mouth. But
Yeah.
if they're taking responsibility for their passing, they're showing me alcohol or drugs or whatever, that person knows. So I don't want to pick at it, but it's really do no harm. The harm's done. The pain is there and they're living it. I don't need to add fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
And I always say that this is a confidential reading. When I sit with someone, I will never cross the ethical line and go knock on someone's shoulder and turn them around and say, by the way, your grandma's here and they have a deceased relative following them. That's just crossing the ethical line. If someone comes to me, that's completely different. If they're recommended to me, that's completely different, but I will not cross that line. So that's kind of a boundary for me.
Yeah.
Also, when I set this up, and like I said, I had a wonderful mentor that it told us, you set the boundaries up. I am not on call 24/7. I'm still in human form. My guides know that. I have to cook dinner and I have to go here and I have to go there. And during my sleep hours, don't wake me. If I'm on, you're going to know that. But I have, lucky, knock on wood, I have not been, impacted by that. I've had dark, heavy things that I've shared in a message to people that have impacted them or kind of sat with me later, like, whoa, that was so heavy. I don't want to repeat that again, but they don't stick with me. I do clear, I do smudge, I do kind of ground myself before and after each session. Even when I'm doing like the energy healing conference and I'm doing back to back readings, I'll still take a cleansing breath all the way into the heavens and issue it to the ground. And then I'll get back on the next call, right? The next person. but I'm clearing intentionally. Everything is intention, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Was there one more question in that?
No, that was
Boundaries.
absolutely great. There's one that, with the heavy energy and stuff like that, like there was one experience that I had to where we went to dinner with, it was a group of people, and there was a couple there that I wasn't, like, it was a friend of my husband's, but then it was a girl that he brought that I didn't know much about him or anything. And I had realized that I had forgot to, because I have this process where I turn myself off and I turn myself on like a light switch. And
Yes.
I must have forgot to turn myself off because I was very open when I went to this dinner. Either that or her energy was just super powerful and I just really picked up on it. But I started shaking really bad.
Um,
And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was just like shaking, shaking. I showed my husband and he's like, what is going on? And I was like, it's her energy. Like there's something going on with her energy. I couldn't even sit through the meal. And so I did ask her if she would step with me to the bathroom so we could have a little conversation. And I said, this is going to sound really weird. And I didn't want to put anything in her head, so to speak, but I was like, what's kind of going on with you right now? Like I'm just shaken. I do energy work. I'm very sensitive and I sense there's like some stuff going on. And she was like, holy crap, yeah, there's a lot going on. She apparently had just broken up with her boyfriend in another state, and his family was very into voodoo.
oh,
And they had a voodoo doll of her, and they like duct taped the mouth, like put stuff in her mouth. Like it was crazy.
oh my
And I
goodness.
was picking up on that. And that's the first time that had ever happened to me. And it freaked me out. I was
Mhm.
like, holy crap, I've never been to dinner with somebody and just started randomly just shaking. I do that in Akashic readings, but I'm also turned on and I
Yeah.
know that why I'm shaking. And so
Yeah.
I
That's interesting. Wow.
yeah, it was crazy. Nothing like that has ever happened to me before or since. And I asked her, I says, do I have permission to give you some energy tools and techniques? And can I do a little mini clearing on you? And I did. And then I remembered to do my own thing and shut myself off and, said, okay, I'm off now. Like I'm good. Like I,
Yeah.
got myself in my little bubble. So stuff like that, when it first happens to you, it really takes you out of your element and you're like, what is going on? Because you don't know, it's the first time.
I
Now
think it's
I
also a
know.
reminder. Our guides and angels are just like, hey, we need you to be strong here, and we're going to remind you that you failed this one. Let's practice so that we don't do that again,
For
right?
sure. Have
Yeah.
you had any experiences with any type of entities? And I know we talked a little bit about this where, when you're asleep, they don't kind of bother you or anything, but like a really vivid dream or something to where you were visited by an entity?
Um, Two stand out to me. One was we bought a brand new home in Plain City, Utah. I mean, brand new. It was built up, like it was the land, right? And when we first moved
Uh-huh.
in, within the first 3 months, and I was just getting into mediumship. I didn't have all my skills then, but I kept feeling this young male like walking through the house, and I was like, "This is weird." So finally, I just said, "Okay," and I'm home alone. I'm just like, okay, I don't know what you need here. What's your name? How can I help you? That sort of thing. And what he basically shared with me is it was his family's land. And
Mm.
so I just said, okay, let me help you to the light, help you cross over. And I never heard from him again. But it was kind of just like, I'm just walking the area because everything changed. It turned into houses instead of just land. It wasn't a scary
Yeah.
thing for him. A really deep personal one for me is I had a mother that passed at a young age, and she came to me. I was working, I was literally at work, and there was this vision that just came to me. And I don't know, 2 or 3 in the afternoon, right? I'm wide awake, of course, in the afternoon working, and I just saw her so clearly. I knew something had happened. I got home. This is back in the day. I'm going to age myself, where there was what are the answering machines, and
Yeah.
my little light was flashing, and I saw my answering machine, and I just absolutely knew. And it was a family member telling me that my mother had passed.
Mhm.
But I knew that she came to visit me. That was the only visitation that I've gotten
Yeah.
that clearly. And after doing this work for so long, I know that that tie to your parents and the child is so connected that they
Mhm.
do come and say goodbye.
Yeah, my dad definitely did, and he waited until my birthday.
Oh, that gave me
Yeah.
chills.
Yeah, my dad definitely did. Um, One of the things that I want to share, it just, again, because to give my students some context, that these types of experiences can come so many different ways. Like there's no one size fits all. And, you can have visitation or experience like me with the dinner where I was shaking, like depending on the person and the persons involved, it can come through for any of these students so many different ways. So one of the things that I had happen to me, and this was a first for me as well, is I was getting ready to do a Akashic reading the very next day. And it was a very, very intense Akashic reading. And I won't go into the details of that, but basically the person I was giving the Akashic reading to, we were sisters in a past lifetime.
Oh, wow.
Never happened to me before. And during this reading, it came in bits and pieces in the beginning. And then I could clearly see us and our connection and like how we were connected as sisters in a past lifetime. And I was shaking so bad, I almost couldn't get through the reading. And that's
Wow.
just what my body does when I do Akashic readings, is I just start shaking really bad. And I get really cold and my legs are shaking and my hands are shaking, which is why I don't do as many of them, just because of the toll it takes on my body, because I get so into it. And the night before that reading, I had an entity come to me, and it was the craziest thing. It was almost like a big dark figure, but I knew it was a figure of positivity. I say dark, and then you automatically assume it was a negative figure. It was not at all. When he came through my bedroom door, and I say he, I don't know, when this being came through my bedroom door, I knew I was startled, but I knew it was going to be nothing negative. He put his hands on my shoulders right here, and he towered over me. He put his hands on my shoulders right here. And I felt this vibration just going through my whole body, like a battery, like he was charging me or something.
Oh,
It was
wow.
the bizarrest feeling ever. And I was just like charged up, almost like static electricity, my entire body. And I started asking questions like, why are you here? I've never met you before. And I was a little nervous. I don't want to say scared, because I wasn't scared. I was nervous because it was the unknown. I didn't know why they were there. I'm like, am I dying? What's going on? And I just felt this charge all the way through my body for it. It seemed like 15 minutes, but I'm sure it was probably just, 5 minutes or something, or maybe even seconds. And I could start to feel him release. And I was like, no, please don't go. Like, I have questions. I need, more energy and stuff. And he just removed his hands, and he's like, everything's fine. And he just walked right back out my door. The very next day is when I had that Akashic reading with that client where we were connected in a past life. And I'm telling you, I was shaking so bad. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, I would not have been able to get through that reading had he not met me the night before and gave me the energy that I needed to get through that reading. And it was life-changing for my client, life-changing. And so there's all these unique things, because your angels, guides, spirit, universe, whoever knows what you need more than you do. I had no clue that that's how that was gonna, manifest. But
That's crazy. It reminds me of another one that I did. And I don't want everyone to think that, excuse me, every reading I do is like, okay, great, I got your grandmother and your mom and they love you very
right.
much. Absolutely not. I've
Yeah.
brought through serial killers in readings, but
Mhm.
I always sit with my client and I'll say, I've got your mother here, your father here, your grandmother, whoever's here. And this one particular case, the young woman said, I don't want to talk to my dad. I don't know why she doesn't want to talk to her dad. I just roll with it. Okay, let's talk to mom and let's talk to grandma. And we did that for half an hour. I said, okay, I just got to tell you, dad's still here. So there's something he wants to say. And I always set the intention at the beginning, like you said, the intro, to the greatest good and highest vibration. That's just where it's coming from for me.
Yep.
I know that there's snakes and rats and stuff in this world, but I just don't go there. So they don't
Yep.
quote exist to me. So it's
Yep.
just light and love, right? So whatever it is he had to say, he had his head down in shame. And I'm telling her, I said, okay, I know you don't want to hear from him, but let me just see what he has to say. I said, I'm going to explain to you what he's showing me. And he went on to show me like this dirt and these holes being dug and, shovels and all this heavy, heavy stuff that I was explaining to her. And she just busted out bawling. And I have no idea what I'm doing here because I'm
Right.
channeling. But it was life changing for her. He was coming through to apologize for getting her involved in the situation of basically the bodies he was burying.
Yeah.
Um, and it was life changing, even though she didn't want to hear from him. She said, I've been to therapy for 35 years for this. And what you gave me tonight was, beyond compare.
Yeah.
So, and it's truly not me. I never take the credit because that person had to come through so much. He
Sure.
repeated it so many times. It wasn't just you needed to hear from your mother and your grandmother. You needed
Yeah.
closure for this,
100%.
So
A personal thing for me with this same reading was that I saw how my past life had affected me in this life, which is the whole reason for an Akashic reading, is you see how past lives are still impacting this life. And one of the things that came up for me is that, and it's come up for me in this lifetime several times, is it's not safe to be seen. And so I would always, if I put myself in a place where I was seen, and then as soon as I had awareness, somebody would come visit me and say, oh, I saw you on this show or that show or whatever, I would automatically contract and be like, oh, I can't be seen. It's not safe. Well, one of the things that came through in this lifetime is I was actually kidnapped and killed in that lifetime.
wow.
And it just validated so much for me in this lifetime, patterns, almost being abducted in this lifetime when I was a kid, like, just things that have happened. And I can correlate the dots and be like, oh my gosh, this was a
Yeah.
trauma that I brought in from this past lifetime into this lifetime unknowingly. And it has affected like this, and this, and now that I have awareness, which I teach, awareness is always first. Once you have an awareness, you can shift and transmute and decode all of these beliefs and emotions and everything that are no longer serving you. So it was huge for me as well. So
Wow.
a lot of times when you're doing a session, I tell my students, it can be for your benefit as well. Like you don't know what's going to come through and how it's going to come through. So
And it's for our growth. It's
for
truly, our
sure.
guides are like, they're going to need this. We need to give them this story. We need that client to come to them so it helps them.
Yeah, for sure. So you've kind of answered a few of the other questions that I've had about building trust and rapport. You say you work with ethics and responsibility at the highest level, which I love. I totally teach that as well. Let's kind of transition a little bit into how you're marketing your services, like what things that you have found to be effective in retaining clients, getting clients, because I know that's something that every medium, every alternative healer, energy healer, like they struggle with providing the value of their service, like why somebody would want to book a session. And full transparency, I went to a group session with you and my two daughters, and it was amazing. I loved it. It was when it was at Trinity. And that's where I first got introduced to you. And then I had you come to my home, and then I had a group thing. So for me, I think the very first experience that you have with somebody, whether that be a healer, a medium, alternative, whatever, is super important for referrals, because I have referred so many people to you. I did the group thing where 8 other people came, but it all stemmed from that first interaction. So that first interaction is super important. But having said that, like, what are some of the things that you do that you found have been beneficial that my students could benefit from?
For advertising itself, it's been fairly simple. When I started out, I did like in the local crystal shops and put my name up there, and 10-minute reading for free, 15-minute reading for free, however I was just building my clientele. But I started with Reiki first, so I was doing that energy stuff first, and nothing was coming through because I wasn't, quote, a medium then.
Yeah.
But I still started at a low deal because for some reason I had to prove it to myself. I'm just really right brained, and I had to do this is all me. I had to do 100 readings, and if they're good, then I can continue. Then I did 200 readings. Okay, they're good. Okay, now I was up to 700 readings, and I'm like, why am I still counting? just
Yeah.
throw it away, right?
Yeah.
But I advertise on Facebook and Instagram and word of mouth and, you know, the locals. But I agree with you 100%. It's truly that first interaction. The what do they say? That first, you only get one chance to make a first impression.
Mhm.
I just try to bring my presence to the table of who I am, my personality, but also I have my guides with me, right? Every single morning, I always say, let me be a channel for spirit this day in the greatest good and highest vibration. Let my voice be your voice. So whatever's going to come through that day, I might meet someone at Walmart and
Yep.
I trust that I have, you know, they got my back in this.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that interaction with someone at Walmart tells their sister and their sister tells someone about me. And then it just goes on from there, but it's truly that interaction. A lot of people, it's funny that you mentioned Zoom. Some people in my line of work, they just think Zoom won't work. You
Mm-hmm.
can't get my person if it's not in person, right? Zoom works exact same way. I've had so many phone calls where I'm picking up the phone, I don't see the person, I don't talk, I don't know the person.
Yeah.
And it still works. I do not Google anyone, Facebook stalk anyone. I don't follow anyone because I say I work for spirit. I'm here to do spirit's job. And 99% of the time, whatever's coming through in the reading, I'm sure your readings are like this because the Akashic's so large,
Yeah.
is what I'm giving you is nothing that I could Google or look up. This is a
No.
memory from your dad when you were 3 in white roller skates or something,
Right.
you know, that you're not posting on Facebook that.
Yeah.
So then it kind of blows them away. Like, how would they know that? How would she know that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that. I don't know until I sit with someone and it comes through with spirit.
Yeah, for sure.
But advertising kind of just on the socials is what I do right now, and word of mouth. I try to put out if I'm doing like a group reading, or if I try to do stuff for the community as well, like some free stuff, some cheap stuff,
Yep.
because not everyone can afford
Yep.
$100 a session or whatever. So I try to keep some in the community and some here. And if
Yeah.
I know a family's really suffering and they can't afford it, I'll do pro bono work. I'm not
Mhm.
too proud to do that.
Yeah.
We're all equals here. We're
Yeah.
all equals here, and I'm all about helping that
I
out.
love all of that. And I love the fact that you're just not sitting around, which I hate to tell this to my students. You're not just sitting around waiting for something to happen. You're actually promoting on social, you're sharing, you're networking, you're being active in the community. You are doing free stuff when appropriate, like all of that stuff. I have a whole other local group that I do free mindset training in. And like, hey, let's do a group thing on Zoom. Let's do a free training. And that either leads them into into a paid session as an affiliate, or they become a student. Like, there's so many ways that you can network and promote your services. You don't just sit around waiting for people to walk in your door. But at the same time, you want to make sure that that first interaction is really leaves a good impression so that they feel comfortable referring friends and family, and, you know, possibly working with you like we are here, like in the future in some other point in time. So I think all that is super important. So where do you see like the future of mediumship, alternative healing? Like, where do you see that going?
Oh my goodness, it's so big right now. Everything is just so open. Everyone's knocking down doors to get to it.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I started seeing it in my readings. So I'm talking to spirit that's passed. They're telling me more about the person in front of me. I will say, "Oh, they just told me that you went to the crystal shop and bought crystals." Yeah, and then my client's like, "Yeah, and this is super cool for me and it's new." So spirit's the one telling me that it's growing and building, and but it's where people are going. Spirituality is truly, like you said, the rabbit hole. To me, structured religion is it, you fit in a box and conform. I'm not against it, but
Right.
this is one thing and this is the other, right? Spirituality is just so open, and you can take a little bit and feel comfortable with it. You can take a lot and feel comfortable with it. You can take it all and still not have enough.
Yeah.
And I just think everyone's going there. I do think that the energy has shifted as we age with this planet. I mean, and the stars align and all the planets move and rotate. We've got a lot of things that are knocking down literal walls for us
Yeah.
to
I
accept
agree.
this information.
And I
Truly.
agree with you 100%. I was brought up in the LDS religion, and I feel like when I talk to people about spirituality and religion and all that, I always say that I am not religious at all. I'm not religious. I think that's a dogma. Like you say, you're fit into a box, and, you know, there's people above you and you have to go through them in order to, you know, have this direct communication with universe, God, whoever. But I do say I'm very spiritual. I'm so spiritual. I talk to my spirits and guides. I, do spiritual practices that help me open up my intuition, stay connected to the earth and, higher spirit for me, but I'm not religious at all. So I feel the exact same way that you do about where it comes to religion and spirituality. And I do feel like religion plays its part for people who need that structure.
Oh,
And there's
yeah.
a point in their life where they like the community aspect maybe of organized religion, because spirituality, although I think there are groups and pockets and like Facebook groups and pockets of collective people that come together, I do feel like when somebody first gets into it, it can be a little bit isolating because they're learning what path is right for them. And they're, not to get too woo, but they're pulling away from the root chakra, which is the tribe. So they automatically feel kind of lost. They
Yeah.
don't know, because they're pulling away from their roots and what a lot of them have been taught and brought up in religion or, within their family beliefs and stuff like that. So yeah, well, this has been super fun. Like, I have enjoyed speaking with you, getting
Yeah.
to know you a little bit more, your insights as a medium and the role that you play. And we will definitely be sure to include links. If there's any students that want to connect with you, maybe get a session from you, we'll link your website, all that kind of stuff. So thank you so much. I've enjoyed our conversation. Is there anything that you feel like you want to add to the conversation before we hop off? Any further insights, last minute thoughts?
Um, no, I think we've covered everything.
Okay.
I think that the last thing I just want to touch very briefly on that religion and spirituality.
Yeah.
Had it not been so impressed upon me since January of 2023, almost every other reading it kept coming through of, spirit was on the other side and they were just saying, let go of the guilt, let go of the guilt. And I would have to tell my client that I don't know what you're carrying. They're talking about religion. Let's let that go. Because yeah, if you live in Utah, it's really prominent, this faith. And I'm not telling anyone to leave. I love the aspect of the community, but there is so much more with spirituality. What spirit has told me, and I've asked my guides a couple different times, is when we get to the other side, the word itself, religion, does not matter. If I wrote it down, it's like it bursts into flames on the other side. It just doesn't matter. It's a man-made structure that we're all trying to conform. And I'm right because I'm Catholic, and you're right because you're Muslim, and you're right because you're Hindu. We're not right. It's all one light. That's what they tell me on the other side. So, and then if you think about that, and let's say we're all one light, when we get to the other side, that's spirituality, right? I'm just here showing my light. That's it.
I love that. I love that. Perfect ending. Again,
Thank you for
so
this.
much for your time, and we'll make sure and get those links for any of the students that want to connect with you.
Thank you, Wendy, so much. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye.